Freaks, Naomi Grossman here, best known as Pepper from American Horror Story. Please subscribe to DNC Digital.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy D from DNC Digital, back with another episode of DNC Radio. Today's guest is Naomi Grossman. Ms. Grossman is an Emmy-nominated TV, film, and stage actress who is very well known as Pepper in the American Horror Story franchise. She also runs Red Meat Entertainment, where she writes and creates comedy shorts on funnyordie.com. Ms. Grossman, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
No, it's awesome. One thing I did want to mention, Denver, Colorado. I was there last week. I was there last week celebrating my mother-in-law's 50th, and I also went to visit my sister. Now I know that's your hometown, and it's just so beautiful out there. It's breathtaking. It's just I can stand there and just stare at the scenery for hours. So I know you've done some theater as a kid. And you got the bug pretty early, and you say in past interviews that your parents were very instrumental in showing you the arts, showing you plays and art. And so how important was that for your parents to show you that, to kind of give you an idea of what you wanted to do in the future?
I mean, extremely important. I think, I'm worried about this next generation that doesn't get to, never mind school, but, even just going to the theater. I mean, that was very, very, very instrumental for me. I mean, I remember seeing Lily Tomlin at the Denver Center doing her one-woman show, Search for Signs of Intelligent Life in the Universe, and saying, that's what I want to do when I grow up. That's what I want to be. And, and I memorized her monologues, and I do them at all the talent shows. And, anytime we had company, they had, everybody watch Naomi do a monologue. Like I've always been, kind of on stage, whether it was an actual stage or one I created. It was, performing was always something I wanted. I almost, I sometimes compare it to being gay. It's almost like you just know, and you can't pray the gay away. Like, I just always knew I was a performer, and try as I might, I really couldn't shake that. Like, that's just who I am. Like, even just during the pandemic, you can Zoom and do yoga to a screen, but like, I kind of always felt like, well, if there's nobody watching, what's the point? And I realized yoga is a whole other thing. Like, yoga is supposed to be a personal sort of solitary thing where you're within yourself. But even that, I can't help it. Like, I need an audience, I need others.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, that's very interesting in the world of theater, because you have like an immediate reaction to your work. You have an immediate kind of critique to your work, whether they can respond with something, and you kind of can go on the fly and you say, maybe I could kind of take it this way, as long as we stay in the parameters of the story. How different is that than working on film, to where you have post-production, you have to wait months for something to come out?
Right. I mean, it's a little nerve-wracking, because like, I'm almost more nervous for something to come out on TV or film, because my work's done. My work may have been done like a year or two ago. Like, there's nothing I can do to fix it. Whereas in stage, like, I can feel if something's tanking, and I will do my best to improv my way out of it, So, the actor has a whole lot more control on stage. Really, actually, the actor's the only variable, that the audience is seeing that can change. Like, let's face it, the sets, the lights, the costumes, these were all things that had been decided long ago.
Right,
And
they're factors into now the only channel to the audience.
Right. The only thing that could really go wrong, obviously there are other technical issues that could befall you, but film and television is the opposite. The actor is honestly a cog in the wheel. Like, in many ways, we're just it isn't an actor's medium per se. It's a writer's medium, really.
And you're just the vessel of their work.
Right. We're just, we're one of the little chess pieces that's going around the board, realizing an entire vision. But if the editor or director doesn't like what we've done, knock us right off the board. Like, there's nothing saying that they got to keep us, playing. Like, it's very easy to wind up on the cutting room floor, and that's just something we don't have a whole lot of control over. All you can do is do your best work and make them not want to cut you.
Got it. No, definitely. And I've learned that you were an exchange student in Argentina when you were younger, and that actually I feel like it led to a certain one woman show that we'll talk about later. But what was that like? Was that a huge culture shock for you to head out there and different food, different culture, different customs?
I wouldn't say culture shock. I mean, only because it was totally welcomed. Like, I loved my time there, and I mean, you're right. Like, I went there. I remember being like president of the Spanish club in my high school, and I got there and I was like, oh my God, I know nothing. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Argentina is a very easy place to acclimate to. Like, the food is ridiculous.
Food is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's like filet mignon or Italian. Like, it's like yum. All of it's delicious. So long as you're not like a vegetarian or vegan, like, it's delicious. The culture, in general, it was a place that was very easy for me to sort of acclimate to. If anything, it made me question my own culture and whether I'd been, maybe accidentally wound up in a basket on my parents' doorstep.
Maybe. Wow. I mean, yeah, we can touch on that too. That could be a possibility.
Yeah, and that's actually part of what that show is about kind of where is home, and finding yourself at home, far from home. And it's about identity, and people say, like, where are you from? Well, I'm technically, if you really want to get down to it, from Denver. But like, I don't like, I don't feel that place in the way I've felt other places. And that's an interesting question.
So you graduated from Northwestern University with a degree in theater. So yeah, I'm wondering, in that environment, when you have everybody around you, possibly like, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be this is something that may or may not be a guaranteed career. What was the driving force behind the, I guess, maybe stubbornness to say, no, I'm going to do this, and I don't really care if, other people, the outside influences come in or not?
Yeah. Fortunately, I mean, yes, there's millions of incredible doctors and lawyers that come out of there. I mean, it is a very prestigious university, but they also have a really strong theater department. So, you've got people like Charlton Heston,
cool.
Charlotte Rae, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Stephen Colbert,
I love Colbert.
David Schwimmer, Warren Beatty, Zooey Deschanel.
This is a great list, including you.
Yeah,
no, this is you're in there.
Well, yeah. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, even in my own, a year ahead of me was Seth Meyers. Nice. A year behind me was his brother, also very talented comedian, Josh Meyers. Does a hilarious Gavin Newsom, by the way.
I think they write together on the show. Is that correct? I know.
Do they? I didn't know that was true, but I mean, yeah, you can imagine Christmas at that house. Right. Zach Braff. I mean, the point is, there were a lot of like very, very, very successful actors coming out of Northwestern well before I got there. So for me to, want to make this a career and not go for a little more stable profession wasn't really out of the ordinary. That's kind of, I mean, that's what people at Northwestern do. They're like, I'm in it to win it. Let's do this.
That's awesome. And I'm glad that it worked out for you. But it wasn't the easiest career. You worked as an extra, and I did years as an extra in New Jersey. And so as an accomplished actress, looking back at your conduct as an extra, what would you say was probably your biggest mistake, and what would you say is your smartest decision?
My conduct as an extra specifically?
Yeah, well, maybe your decisions, or maybe I should have shaken that guy's hand, or I should have,
Oh, well, I don't know. I think I do not regret having ever got me onto sets, like in the way. And listen, I didn't do a whole lot of it because I was terrible. I was like a terrible extra. I don't know how you can suck so much at something that is actually so simple.
all you have to do is sit there.
Background, like you do nothing, and that's actually part of the problem for me. I am always doing something.
You're
like,
way too animated to just sit there and do nothing. Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, I am a presence. Like, I know this about myself. I walk into rooms and people, I kind of take attention. And that's the opposite of what you want as an extra. As an extra, you're just filler. You're, background. And I mean, I'll never forget them being like, hey, you, can you go back like 40 feet? Actually, can you turn around? No, actually, that's even worse. Just go back to holding. Like I was terrible, and you can see it like on film. There's a movie, She's All That.
She's All That. Yeah, that's the one that I saw.
Yeah, you can catch me in the background right behind Freddie Prinze Jr. It's the last scene of the movie.
Okay.
He's graduating and he's naked with like a basketball in his front. And I mean, listen, again, I'm an actor. I was
you have to respond to said naked body. Yes.
Yeah. So like if there's a naked, like very handsome Freddie Prinze Jr. sitting in front of you, you're probably gonna react.
Probably react,
so there I am behind him, kind of with my eyebrow up, like okay. And I mean they ended up using it, but at the same time, like that's technically what they don't want. They want
right. You're taking away from the subject matter, the main focus of the show.
Yeah.
I got in trouble a couple times too, and I totally relate. Another thing I can relate about is a certain profession that you needed to have while you were funding yourself in living, while you were trying to be an actress. Can you go back and talk about maybe the worst customer experience that you've had as a server in restaurants?
Oh God. Well, I actually was I had to go to court once because a undercover cop busted me for serving someone who was intoxicated. And
wow,
it's really hard to tell.
It's hard to hit that, like, no, you're cut off. Sometimes they're okay, sometimes they're not.
Like I got a lot going, as a cocktail waitress, I had a lot going on. I didn't have time to like monitor everyone's, inebriation. So
walking around with a breathalyzer test or something.
Right. I don't. So honestly, that's such a long time ago. I don't even remember it, but that was obviously very unpleasant. Yeah, I was also just a terrible waitress. Like I have zero filter. Like and again, it's great as an actress. Yes. Like you can say anything to me and I will react.
No, yeah, and it's great as a human being. I'm very like, just tell me how it is. It's whatever. I mean,
I mean, again, it's terrible if you're an extra. It's terrible if you're a poker player. If you're a spy. You know what I mean? But like, I'm as a waitress, like when somebody would like take too long to order, like I'm like, or I have a really hard time like.
There's a bit in there somewhere that you need to write, possibly maybe you as a juror and just reacting to every little thing that the prosecution presents.
That's another good one.
You can kind of nudge the other juror like, hey, did you hear that?
Immediately. No, I'm always dismissed. They're like, no, this chick is gonna ruin everything.
Too bad. No. So you come from a comedic background, which is really, really cool. And until you do your research, you said in past interviews that you are surprised that people are surprised that you have a comedic background. So you were in the Groundlings improv group, which is so awesome. And I'm sure that that provided the background to I mean, the Red Meat Entertainment, what you run, particularly Wigga Please and Hot Yoga, those are hilarious skits. Um, but then in other interviews, you talk about how in comedy, it's such drama inside. I've read tons of books where comedians are some of the most depressed people on earth. Can you talk about how some people might not understand that you can use humor to mask or even just make you feel a little better about tragedy?
Yeah, I mean, I've had stand-up comedian friends who are like, shit, what am I gonna do? Like, I'm in this great relationship, like, she feeds me, I'm so happy, like my career is gonna tank, like it's not gonna survive this dream relationship. And I get that. Like I know for me, comedy is definitely one of my sort of defense mechanisms.
Yes,
Um
I'm the same
I
way.
mean, in this just the pandemic alone, I was really suffering at the start. It's funny, they say we're all in different we're all in it what is it? We're all in the same roller coaster, just not on the same part of the ride. Like I feel like I was in the very front seat at the start. Like I didn't like the first 48 hours were the worst for me. Most people were like, come like August, September, October last year, they started to like lose their mind a little. I lost it from the the onset.
And now you have all this time to have to get over that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, yeah. I mean, I reacted not well at the beginning, but then I started to realize like I gotta use this, make
Yes.
something out of it.
Yeah.
And honestly, I wrote a new one woman show, which I think is some of my best work. And granted, I didn't write about the pandemic. Um, Although I think some of that could have been hilarious too. There were definitely like moments where I was like, oh my God, this is a pandemic sketch. You know what I mean? Like me putting on makeup for the first time. It was literally like, if you remember that Muppets sketch where the cook is trying to
Oh, the
like,
cook.
and she's like chopping off all her fingers. Like that was me. I'll never forget, like, after a couple weeks of just not doing myself, trying to put on makeup again for the first time, and I was like stabbing myself in the eye, and I was just I mean, it was ridiculous. So there were definitely, there was comedy to come of that tragedy for sure. And even though this solo show isn't actually about the pandemic, thank God, no one wants to watch that.
Right.
I definitely think, I mean, I use that time, and I mean, in that regard, I'm almost thankful for it. Like that show wasn't going to write itself with me, running off to parties
With
and,
different distractions and everything, maybe your best work comes out when you're just totally in your own bubble. I myself had my own epiphany one day, and it made me change my careers, and I'll never forget that day, and I'm very thankful for that day. And for me, like when you say makeup, it was hard for you to do makeup. For me, it was like socks. I was like, I hadn't worn socks in weeks, and I was just like, this feels weird. This is
yeah.
and then I gotta put shoes on too. I gotta go out, like no more pajama pants, no, like I gotta shave. This is all just strange stuff. Excuse me. But hot yoga is it's a hilarious skit. Anybody watching, listening, you need to look up hot yoga. It is, I was cracking up because you are a yoga teacher who just becomes a little too close with her students, and some are very receptive, and one woman in particular was not, and it was just awesome. But you also do yoga. What are some of the benefits that you get from yoga?
Oh my God. Um, Well, first I just have to tell you about that sketch. When I was
Please,
at the
yes.
Groundings, among other comedy theaters around town. Yeah, I've always been obsessed. I've done yoga now for about 22 years, so I'm pretty deep in. I drank that Kool-Aid a long time ago. So yeah, I was constantly trying to incorporate it into my sketches, and like invariably every week I would come to the theater with like a new yoga sketch. It was just because I was like doing so much of it that my brain, I was like, I had an hour and a half a day where I was supposed to be like just zenning out and doing nothing and being without thoughts. But of course I was just constantly thinking about like, how can I there's funny in here. There's funny. Where do I find it? Gosh. I don't know how to describe it other than I am literally a different person after yoga. Like I like her so much better. The Naomi that pre-yoga Naomi is a little cranky, kind of short and a little aggro, and whereas after I've practiced, I'm like the hardest thing that I'm going to deal with all day is done, and I got through it, and now it's all just I just breathe through it, and yeah, I breathe better. I feel better. I'm, physically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, in all the adverbs. I just feel like, God, if only we could just all do yoga, the world would be a better place. That's not realistic, but
no, I mean, no.
It's kind of like,
we need some type of discourse and some type of on the other side to make it a little more entertaining,
I don't know. It's kind of like John Lennon's like, give peace a chance, like give yoga a chance. Like you'd be so like, imagine all the people, geez, like, wow.
Let's do Downward Dog with Imagine playing in the background. That's awesome.
Yes.
But in that skit, I mean, I would assume in that world, because to be totally honest, if I get to go to work and I have an attractive woman touching me, all good. But then in that world, it just becomes part of the job, part of the art. Was it difficult for some actors? Were they apprehensive to
Well, all those guys in that were all my best friends. Like they all were doing comedy with me. And we were all in like kind of comparable places in our career. So they were anxious to have tape on YouTube too. So no, I think everyone was totally gung-ho. I think now after the fact, I mean, let's face it, I did that pre-Pepper. Like I was still kind of I was
just trying to get the feet wet, trying to get some work out there.
Yeah. Right. Well, the thing is, I'd been at the Groundlings where I'd been let go, and sounds very dramatic, and yet that's just how it is over there. Like right. I wish one day they could do like a reality show about like life at the Groundlings, because it really is like it's reality show worthy.
It's a reality, yeah.
They'll never let that happen. The point is, they basically vote people up or out. And of my cast of 14, they voted 10 of us out, one of which being me. So basically, I spent again another terrible 48 hours thinking that like my life was over and I would never ever recover from this. And then I realized that's ridiculous. Like I can do comedy even if it's not on Melrose Avenue, no problem. And I'm very lucky to live in a day and age like where there's a thing called YouTube, and I can take those same sketches that I would have done on Melrose and put them online and have you and everyone else and their mother be able to see it. So, hey, they did me a favor. Took me a while to see that, but yeah, so that's really where those sketches were born from, my own sort of need to create and, put my mark out into the world. That said, I also just wasn't being cast in a traditional way. And so
you were just making it yourself.
Well, yeah, it's kind of one of those things where chicken or the egg. Like you can't get cast without a resume, but how do you get a resume without being cast?
Without getting cast. Got it.
And so I cast myself. And I, again, no regrets. I mean, there's some of that work I'm more proud of than others, but at the same time, like, it's what I had at the time. Like, I didn't have any money, I had like whatever money I had left over, my waiting tables money when I wasn't being sued for serving intoxicated people. I put towards, finding an editor and cameraman and some props and a couple friends and a studio to shoot in.
For what it's worth,
ultimately, first of all, it kept me in the game,
right? Yeah.
Because had it not been for that, then because that was in I want to say I was released from the Groundings in 2006. It wasn't until 2012 that I kind of had my first big break within American Horror Story. Right. So those 6 years I needed to fill somehow. Let's face it, it's not like they led me directly to Ryan Murphy, but at the same time, Ryan needed something to Google. Like when they were looking at headshots, deciding who's going to play Pepper, I'm sure they, Googled everybody and saw what there was to see. And, had it not been for that stuff, there would have been nothing to see. So
Yoga and Wigga Please, those are my favorite ones. Wigga Please, oh my God. That is just good stuff, Miss.
That was
Naomi.
based on a real story, of course.
On a real boyfriend that
yes.
He was just trying way too hard.
Well,
but I'm sure he was a sweet guy.
I remember when he sauntered up to me at a bar, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's such a character. And I thought, when he asked me out, I was like, yeah, definitely.
Because
I want to see how this ends. Like,
to research
this is
further
ridiculous.
My next.
Like, you are a character and I am going to study you.
Yes.
And what I did not see coming was the fact that I actually kind of liked him and was having a good time. And then when he did break up with me, I was like, wait, what? You're breaking up with me? Like, this was like a character study. Like, I'm just doing research right now. Like, what? Anyway, yeah, that was endlessly funny. I mean, mostly for my friends, they would, we get together and they're like, read your text. Because, he'd be writing to me in Ebonics. And then I would kind of try to respond in kind, like I was kind of learning a new language myself. And it was fun.
Cool. And you're a very intelligent, well-versed woman. So to learn a 4th language would be even better. A 4th language. Hey, so I also want to know, there was a show that I used to watch as a kid. I was probably 11 or 12, and it was a show I should not be watching. I did not know you made an appearance on it. Can you talk about your experience on Blind Date?
Oh my God. This interview's over. No, I'm kidding. Not kidding. That is not something I'm real proud of.
I saw that you said that same sentence, and I'm like, I gotta ask her about this.
No, oh my God, no one has seen that, thankfully. Now that you have, I might have to kill you. No,
well, it would be an honor. Just dress up as Pepper, and it'll be all good.
Wow, yeah, that was not my finest day. Yeah, that's why I have a real aversion to reality TV. Ever since then, I really don't want to be myself. That lady on that show had not done yoga that day. I can guarantee.
Got it. Okay, that was pre-yoga.
It was pre-yoga. Yeah. Oof.
Got it. So we move on, and it's pretty cool because I've learned that the audition process for American Horror Story was kind of very secretive. You weren't sure what you were auditioning for. You weren't even sure of the character. They just gave you the lines. So what was that process like as you were learning as you went on? Because I learned that even after, excuse me, after you decided that you were going to get on, then they ask you like, hey, can you shave your head?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny the way you said decided. Like, I didn't decide anything. I mean, I I'm just an actor trying to get cast. And so, yes, like they decided on me, and I was like, yes, yeah, you know, just saying yes to everything pretty much. Yeah, it was after the fact that they asked whether I would shave my head. And honestly, you know, I'd heard rumor of someone being dismissed when they said no. So I wasn't going to be that person. I just wanted to, I'm a yes man, you know? And I'm glad I did. I mean, at the time I was kind of like, why can't we just use a ball count? You know, I mean, it didn't really make a lot of sense to me, but I also understand it's all about economics at the end of the day. Like it costs a whole lot less to pay me once to, you know, to shave my head and buy me a wig and just, you know, get on with it than have to make those, you know, hairdresser or makeup artists come in every day an hour early just to put on that, put on that wig cap. And even then, that wig cap, these people are not, they're not going to put on like a swimming cap and dab a little speckle on it. Like these are serious pros. Like if they had gone the ball cap route, they probably would have come up with some kind of a appliance with actual hairs sewn in. So you have to imagine like the pepper hair or pepper, the pepper brows, for example, each one had been like hand sewn in perfectly. And that's just the brows. And never mind like when they did like the chest, we did for the Freakshow episode 1, there was like a freak orgy and they saw sort of Pepper naked basically with a diaper on. And sure enough, I had these big man boobs with, you know, kind of hair coming out of them, an old treasure trail. Like, so, and that was personally, you know, sewn on one by someone with a ton of patience.
It's like, honey, what did you do today? Oh, I sewn in a treasure trail on a prosthetic stomach.
Right. Crazy.
So for those that don't know, and I don't know who wouldn't know, but Pepper is a character that you played on American Horror Story. And I want to make sure, out of respect, I want to make sure I pronounce this correct. Microcephaly? Am I saying that correctly?
Microcephaly.
Microcephaly, excuse me. I want to make sure I'm very respectful toward anybody who suffers from that. But you had to educate yourself on that. Well, and you know, there's cognitive issues, there is speaking issues, you know, size issues, and you know, there is a physical deformation in the face. What was the most difficult element about that you had to learn without kind of making it a parody?
Well, that in itself was the hard part. Like, because I'd come from comedy, where, you know, making fun is what we do.
Right.
To take this condition and make it real and not make a joke out of it. And it's really just a matter of kind of dialing it up or down.
Kind of finding a sweet spot between it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a matter of playing it real. And, you know, it's not a joke. You're not making fun. It's mimicking to a point, but I mean, obviously there's a lot of layers. Like it's not enough to just take on the physicality and the sound and the, you know, the walk, the talk, the all that. Like there's a emotional, you know, intellectual backstory too, which gives it life. So it all works together. There's the inside and the outside, you know. I tend to be a very physical performer, so I tend to kind of go from the outside in. Like I'll, you know, shave the head, put on the you know, well, and that's in the case of Pepper. But even like with some of my characters at Groundings, I figure out like their wig and their, you know, their makeup, their walk, their talk, you know, do all the outside and then kind of really investigate the inside, like what makes them this way. And I think that's some of the trick. I think a lot of those characters on SNL, those really big over the top characters, which again, I that was my niche for so long while I was at the Groundlings. They're not necessarily doing that deep dive inside. You know what I mean? I mean, why should they? Those characters live for 5 minutes on Saturday night.
Exactly.
And then they're gone. They're done. Whereas, you know, for a drama series that's going to run several episodes, if not seasons, you know, you really need to take the time to do that extra work, you know.
Did you get any response from that community? Anybody with that condition that come to you like, thank you for bringing light to this situation. Thank you for, what kind of response did you get?
Oh my goodness, I did. It was so positive, and I had no idea what to expect. I remember when I first got this, I would wake up like in the night, like sweating about, you know, how this was going to go down. You know, had I, you know, what if I was perceived as making fun or taking someone's role? Like, gosh, I need a job too.
Yeah.
You know, so that was, you know, that was very stressful at first, but it was, it just goes to show I was stressing for absolutely nothing. As it turns out, I was met with just so much support. You name it. I mean, I remember, I want to say it was in Laredo, Texas. I had someone who came to me with a photo of his microcephalic brother and said, you know, you have no idea what you meant to our family.
That's so cool.
You know, my brother loved you so much. You know, he passed a few years ago, but man, he's, you know, you're one of us, you know, you're one of the family. And that means so much. It in every way, it's like, was the dream come true?
It's bigger than us. It's totally that's such a cool story. So American Horror Story is a very graphic, very in touch with the sexual arts. It's just gory. There's so many elements of horror in that show. But when you think of Murder House, they touch on mental illness. When you think of Asylum, they touch on also mental illness. When they do Coven, they touch on the occult. Roanoke was one of my favorite historical stories as a kid, and they touch on that. Freakshow, another one. People who are different, but they still have hearts. What do you think about the education that American Horror Story is doing with horror as the backdrop?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely, it's occurred to me every now and then when we befall some sort of really heinous, you know, tragedy, and I'm like, oh, why are we putting more horror out in the world? Like, we should, again, deep down, I'm John Lennon, peace and love, imagining we're all doing yoga, you know, so every now and then I'll struggle with just the to be like promoting horror basically, but at the same time, I mean, it does provide an escape. I think especially like in the case of Freakshow, I mean, I feel there was so much humanity there, that we are all freaks. That's a message I think we all need to hear. You know, I think, yeah, they do bring some history. I mean, let's face it, like the serial killers,
the round table
scene in the round table.
That was amazing.
In the hotel.
That was so cool.
These are real, you know, historical. I think there's something to be said for that. Like that there's, they're taking real, I mean, Schlitzie for that matter, right? A real life microcephalic after which Pepper was based. We're now being exposed to things, you know, people are off Googling Jeffrey Dahmer and, you know, the Zodiac killer because of it. Like, and I think there's something, there's a takeaway there. I think that's a good thing ultimately, you know. It's not just escapist, although nothing wrong with escapism either. You know, there's a lot we want to escape from now. So I don't know. I go back and forth from thinking that we're, this is the devil's work to, that's a little hyperbolic, by the way, but yeah, I kind of go back and forth. But ultimately, I'm, the irony is horror fans are like the nicest people on the planet.
Yes.
Like, I'll go to these horror cons and people will be, covered in blood, like, Carrie's prom picture, right? And they're like, that couldn't be nicer. And it's meh. So I'm hardly going to bite the hand that feeds me. And, these people put me on the map and I am so thankful for it. So,
and these people that are such huge fans and coming to meet you, you have some beautiful artwork behind you. And all of that is fan made.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I just realized there's actually one right behind me. It's probably a little too high, but actually by a real life microcephalic who I got
amazing.
to meet in I want to say Tallahassee, Florida. His name is Mr. Micro. His his first name is Daryl. If you Google Mr. Micro, you'll see who I'm talking about.
Everybody Google Mr. Micro, show him some love.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you when people take their, like the one over your right shoulder? I can't imagine how long it took.
I know.
What do you think about people spending their time and having a character that maybe they relate to on an emotional way, or on they just hold your character in such high regard, and that character came to life because of your work, because of your abilities to bring it to life? What does that do for you?
These are my babies. Like, this is the thing. If in a case of a fire, this would be the first thing I came for.
That's so cool.
Like, before my, before even my family photos, maybe, like this, these have such deep meaning. I've never sat down and painted a performer that meant anything to me. Like, I've been endlessly inspired by various, actors, and yet would never think to do all this. It's just amazing. The fact that my art could inspire others' art, it's like, it makes it all worth it. Like, you could just pay me in fan art. You know what I mean?
That's the two-way street in art that is just beautiful. Like, you put something out and they in turn, this is what I did for you because you did that for me. That's so cool. So in Asylum, Pepper didn't have many lines. She was pretty much just showing up and giving Jessica Lange like her servant, and she just became a fan favorite. Now, before we get to that, I almost forgot. When I saw you getting your makeup done in the chair, I saw you playing around with your face. Now, you're a very animated woman, it's evident by this conversation, but you are also, you do improv and you're a comedian. So how fun was that, learning what kind of faces you can make to bring this character to life as you were putting on the makeup?
Yeah, I mean,
it almost reminded me of like that scene of Mrs. Doubtfire's, as they were trying every little getup, he was trying a different voice with the getup.
Right. I mean, I'm very expressive, and it means it's good and bad. It means that there are certain roles that I'll never get. Like, oh my God, I get called sometimes for, to play these sort of like DAs or boss types, or, on these like procedural dramas where like they don't move their face. You know what I mean? Yeah, I know you've seen it. Like
Law and Order stuff?
Yeah, Law and Order, or like Kerry Washington is an actress that I really, really love, really respect.
Awesome.
But I feel like she and I are absolute opposites. Like, she can deliver dialogue like a million miles a minute and not a single without using even a single muscle in her face. I can't. Like, I can't even get out one syllable without like all the muscles.
It's endearing though. I love it.
But so ultimately, that is what was necessary to bring Pepper to life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the makeup just sits on the subject unless you do something with it. So, you know, obviously the pepper makeup was a huge part of it, but I had to, you know, bring it. And bringing it in this particular case, especially because there was so much prosthetics, meant really acting through the makeup. You know, all that theater training came to use because I was acting to the back row, you know, whereas had they not had all that makeup on me, I'm naked. And you know, that's when you have to kind of tone it down because the camera is just right there. Like it's not theater. You're not actually acting to the
Right.
back row.
Yeah.
You're acting to a camera that is maybe a foot away from you. You know, and they see every little, you know, you raise your eyebrow a millimeter and it's like, ah, you know, so it's, so in that regard, I feel like the prosthetics really help me. And I embrace prosthetics.
That's awesome. So Pepper became a fan favorite, and I feel like it's what played a huge part in it was social media. And it feels like if Pepper wasn't in this vacuum, she may not have returned for Freakshow. How important for future work, how important for casting, how important for the art of cinema and TV is social media and the fans having a platform to respond to certain decisions?
Huge. I agree. I think had we not had, you know, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all the others, an outlet for fans to let the show know, like, this is what we like, this is what we don't, we may never have seen Pepper again. So I'm endlessly thankful to fans and for the internet for that matter. I feel really lucky to live in this age when we do have that outlet, this way to interact with each other. Because who knows, I could have just kind of gone away. Absolutely. I mean, there is someone employed at FX, right? And all the networks for that matter, to monitor just what people are commenting on, who's popular, who's not.
Wow.
Absolutely. And so that's why I always tell people, because they're constantly tweeting me, oh, please come back. And I'm like, look, no one wants to make her mortgage more than me. Like, you don't have to tell me twice. I am actually like not the person to talk to. I don't make these decisions. If I did, I'd be in every season. Like, you know, let the show know. Like, these are the powers that be. Like, they're the ones that really, you know, decide these things. So.
And your career took off after Pepper, and I congratulate you for that because, like I said off camera, it's really cool to talk to you because I've been a huge fan since your Pepper role. So you started getting back on stage, doing some one-woman shows, Carnival Knowledge and Girl in Girl in Argentine Landscape. Was that a full circle moment for you coming back from doing a huge TV role and getting on stage again? And what were these one-woman shows about?
So actually, I did Girl in Argentine Landscape in 2002 for the first time.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I got my dates mixed up.
Yeah, no, it's okay. And then Carnival Knowledge was in 2009, and then I reprised it in Edinburgh, Scotland, and London in 2010, and then in New York in 2011. And then since then, I have done it in various.
Oh, okay, that's what it was. I saw a more recent poster with the dates, and I thought that was the premiere date.
Yeah, no, I have. I mean, I've done it in colleges and whatnot, but I haven't really done a big run of that since my success as Pepper.
Got it.
I mean, I have one that I've worked on since. It's the new show that I've mentioned that I wrote during the pandemic. It's called American Horror Story.
That's what I was gonna ask. I saw that. I wanted to know Ryan Murphy's response because I know that your mind goes at 1,000 miles an hour. So I was wondering what was his response when you mentioned American Horror Story?
Oh, he was totally supportive. He's absolutely on board.
Awesome.
I'm very, yeah, I mean, that was important to me. I mean, obviously I could call it anything, but it's a good title.
It's it's a good
So yeah,
tag.
I
Yes, it's a good tag.
was very grateful when because I wrote him and asked permission, and he granted it. So
Awesome.
yeah.
So, when we first met, you showed me your posters for those shows, and listening to the title of the new show, it's probably in the same category. So you're you have a very sexy picture on the posters. I'm just trying to be as respectful as possible.
Of course.
So when it comes to nudity in art, how do you combat the naysayers that say, you're just using your body for work, or you're just using your body to make money? Or because there's some people that like, I wouldn't know how to describe it, because there are some people that look down on, just a very sexy picture, and it doesn't have to be like sexual. It's just more of a sensual kind of thing. That was my take on it. I don't know how you combat, doubters when it comes to, having your body like that on a poster.
Right. I mean, the way I see it, there's, first off, sex sells.
Fair.
So,
Okay.
but I'm not just going to use image because it's going to get audience in. It's not a terrible reason to use an image, but I also want it to be about that. In the case of Girl in Argentine Landscape, you're absolutely right. There's, it's a nude of me kind of from behind. But in my opinion, it's a very tasteful, beautiful nude, not unlike the things you might see, let's say in the David, let's say in the Duomo in Florence, right? So who is butt naked, but nobody's talking about how, sexual that it's not. It's art. It's beautiful. It's the human form. And the fact is, that show is set in the art gallery. And so in my opinion, using a beautiful image, an artistic depiction of myself in my most vulnerable, naked state was kind of a perfect metaphor for this show. I mean, the show, I am completely naked, not physically, but I am 100% vulnerable. You see all of me in this show, and that is why, in my opinion, it's actually a perfect image for that show. Carnival Knowledge was the same way. It's set on a carnival midway, and I just happened to have dressed as a Brazilian carnival dancer for the Playboy
dressed,
party, Halloween. Thank you very much. And my neighbor shot that shot, and before the party, and it was just, so I was like, well, it's a super sexy show. It is, and it's and again, it's kind of a vulnerable, inviting, enticing, titillating picture, hoping to,
just a little hot yoga coming at you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just no different than a carnival barker who's like, hey, step right up. Like the show, and I mean, this photo is enticing, and that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
I will say, American Horror Story does not. I don't have an image like that. I know you're thinking like that's my thing, and I only pose naked on the covers of my. That's not really the case.
No, I mean, I found it very interesting.
Way,
No, yeah, I had a conversation with my girlfriend because I interviewed a woman who was a burlesque dancer, and I feel like burlesque, like they had clothes on, but it's very entertaining. It's just fun. It's not. I'm not looking at you like I'm looking at for your body. I'm just very entertained by this show. That's how I take it. So
yeah, I would say the people often make that mistake with my shows, though. They see it and they're like, oh, you do burlesque? And I'm like, no. So I think in that regard, yes, it is a little misleading, but I hadn't thought of that when I was doing it.
No, sure.
In my mind, I was just trying to sell the show, trying to get people in, and I knew that would probably do it.
So my girlfriend said that she has a problem with people calling somebody brave for being vulnerable physically. She says that, she's like, that's not brave. It shouldn't be brave. Like, it's just, this is just me. Like, this is my body, and I love it, and I believe in body positivity and all that. She just has a problem with people calling her brave for maybe just wearing a sexy outfit or lingerie or something like that. Do you have any feelings like that as far as society's response to, women being physically vulnerable and maybe not at a size that society says women should be in, something like that?
I mean, I think we're way too prude. I mean, I'm looking for somebody to come with me to the World Naked Bike Ride on Saturday. Like, I don't know who will go.
Wow.
I might have to go all by myself, and that's kind of a bummer. Is that brave of me to go biking naked in the streets of Los Angeles alone? Maybe. I don't know. I think it's fun.
Yeah,
it's thrilling. It is body positivity. It is it's not sexual. It's
just freedom,
naturist.
Right?
Yeah, it's about being free. And so I don't know. I just think I think we're way too uptight and worry way too much about what others wear and what other people who cares? I really don't.
That's awesome. Lastly, we're gonna wrap it up in a little bit, but what has been probably your craziest fan interaction as you do these cons, when you're going out signing posters of Pepper and these beautiful drawings behind you?
Craziest fan interaction. Gosh, I'm rarely stumped.
I was afraid to ask this one because I felt like it was pretty elementary and pretty commonly asked.
No, yeah, I mean, okay, here you go.
Okay. I'm gonna strap in for this one with the look on your face.
Yeah, well, this is actually this is part of the new solo show, and I can't give you the full version because it literally would take an entire episode of your podcast to really do justice to. But I got to have a really beautiful full circle moment when I returned to Monterrey, Mexico.
Nice.
So, northern Mexico for a Comic-Con, where I say returned because I had, in another life, time anyway, it feels like it anyway. I had a boyfriend from Mexico who had a horrible injury, and we ended up having to go our separate ways. And that was, at the time, it was 14 years prior. We'd been sort of back and forth a couple for about 7 years. And then 14 years passed and I hadn't seen him. And I saw him again at this Comic-Con in Mexico. And
that's so cool.
That was mind-blowing. Because the last time he'd seen me, I was doing bad improv with more performers than there was audience. He'd never even heard of American Horror Story. So, we all want our exes to see us succeed, but rarely do we get the satisfaction of actually physically seeing them see us succeed. So, I was up on the stage, like kind of like watching him watch me. And it was everything I ever wanted. Like, wow. I needed closure in that relationship. I mean, that we ended because he had a head injury and it was bigger than me. I couldn't take it on. He needed like some real help. Like he needed some family and like a ramp. You know what I mean? Like this was much bigger than I could was signed up for. And so I had really no choice but to say goodbye. In spite of the fact that we never officially broke up, we just sort of said goodbye. And to be able to say hello again and to finally disclose the details of what happened at that accident, which I was there for, I saw, and yet, he doesn't remember.
Wow.
Yeah. And no one else knows. So it was very meaningful for everybody. It was, we laughed, we cried, we did a few other things. And it was, it was just a really, it was a full circle moment.
That's cool. I'm glad you had that. And I can see what it meant to you. And I'm very happy for you. Miss Grossman, thank you so much for your time. This was awesome. I'm a huge fan, and that's the cool part about getting to do these podcasts, is that I get to have conversations with awesome people like yourself. Can you tell the beautiful listeners and viewers where they can find you on social media?
Sure. I'm at Naomi W. Grossman on all platforms. Look for the blue check mark.
And NaomiGrossman.net, where they can find all your stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
I just want to make sure, American Horror Story, is that still in the works, or is that coming out soon?
Yeah, so my own show, American Horror Story, is I don't know when and where and how to tell you to see it, because it doesn't exist yet. It's written and it's memorized and it's blocked, and I'm ready for like a Netflix or Hulu, or anybody listening wants to, fund it and make it, have it streaming on their platform. Fantastic. If not, when we're gathering in theaters next, I'll put it up on stage. Like the avalanche has come down the mountain. I just don't know when it's going to actually hit.
Got
land.
it.
You know what I mean?
When it's gonna land. You can find Naomi Grossman playing Pepper in American Horror Story Asylum, Freakshow, and she also has parts in American Horror Story Apocalypse and American Horror Stories on Hulu. Miss Grossman, thank you so much. This is D. You can find me at DNC Digital on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Fellas, if you've grown a beard during the pandemic and you got some nice facial hair, you want to make it look nicer, hit up canyouhandlebar.com. Use my promo code DNC Digital for 15% off. Everybody have a great day and take care of yourself.